We all know Xbox has an absolute metric ton of games in development, but did you know that Xbox has more single-player narrative-driven games in the works currently than ever before? We're going to talk a little bit about that, and Phil Spencer and Matt Booty also talk about acquisitions. There's a lot here to talk about, so let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? It's Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. I hope everybody's having a great day, and yes, I'm finally back. It's been basically a month since my last video. A lot of you already know, but I was really sick with pneumonia for the past 3 weeks. Couldn't really make any videos because I couldn't stop coughing. Just really sick, but I really appreciate everybody who reached out to me to ask how I was doing, who gave me well wishes and said, Rand, we need you back on these YouTube streets talking about Xbox. It truly means the world to me. So thank you guys for all the incredible support, but I am 100%. The videos are going to start back up pretty much on a daily basis when there's stuff to talk about, and the podcast with Jez Corden is back. So yes, I'm back, baby, and it feels really good. I know I say this in the intro to every video, but I really need it now because it's been over a month. But can you guys please do me a huge favor and hit that like and subscribe button and share this video out on social media so everybody knows that I'm back. Thank you guys. So I figured for my first video back, I would do something light. And there just happened to be a new interview with Phil Spencer and Matt Booty that I thought was really interesting because it disproves a lot of what people are saying about Xbox's focus with Xbox Game Studios and how their teams basically have a mandate. Every single one of their games, because of Xbox Game Pass, has to be a games as a service, have to be a live service with seasons, battle passes, and all that stuff, and that Xbox isn't going to make those single-player narrative-driven games that a lot of people want. It's very interesting because Phil Spencer basically said today, you're completely wrong. Not only are there more games in development for Xbox right now, but there are more narrative-driven games in the works from their teams than ever before. And then we have the acquisition talk, the ever-present acquisitions about which team, which publisher Microsoft might decide to pick up next. Is it going to be Avalanche? What about IO Interactive? What about NetherRealm and Traveler's Tale? It's always a conversation that comes up when we talk about Xbox. And honestly, it's a little bit warranted because Phil Spencer and Matt Booty and the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, when they talk about Xbox, they talk about growing their teams. They talk about acquisitions. So it's no wonder that every single time Phil or Matt do these interviews, acquisitions always come up. So we have a lot here to talk about. But first, I want to talk about how most people are wrong. How most people thought because of Xbox Game Pass and Microsoft's commitment to co-op gaming and things of that nature, that Xbox would have a mandate, that Xbox is basically telling their developers, hey, we need games that have seasons after seasons after seasons like Sea of Thieves or Halo Infinite. We need games that last forever. We don't want those one-and-done style of experiences. This line of thinking couldn't be further from the truth. So in an interview with The Guardian, when talking about this stuff, they say, but where does that leave more offbeat ideas and concepts that couldn't support years worth of play? Where does it leave the single-player narrative adventure? The blockbusting genre that brought us titles such as Metal Gear Solid, Red Dead Redemption, and Mass Effect. It's a genre Sony has supported through funding the studios that make games such as The Last of Us, Spider-Man, and God of War. But Microsoft has focused its efforts on cross-platform connected games as symbolized by the mammoth Minecraft industry. Is there still room for traditional forms of narrative games on the Xbox Series X? And this has been a question that has been asked Phil Spencer for years now. People have wanted a God of War on Xbox or a Spider-Man, a Last of Us. They want that big AAA cinematic experience on the Xbox. So let us see what Phil's answer was to this question. Quote, I think we're probably building more of those now than we've been in the history of Xbox, says Xbox chief Phil Spencer. Quote, platform holders, whether that platform is subscription or hardware device or store, are actively investing in new and probably more risky things, because if it works, we get value out of bringing players into the ecosystem. And we all know Xbox is focused on Game Pass, their subscription-oriented service, but you need many different types of games to appeal to many different types of gamers. Sure, you can have your Halo Infinite multiplayer last forever, or your Sea of Thieves that constantly is changing seasons, but that only really appeals to a certain gamer. To really appeal to everybody, you're going to need those single-player narrative-driven games, those big AAA games that really appeal to another segment of the audience. And Xbox wants to cover its bases by having a bunch of different games, a bunch of different diversity, and many different genres. So yes, they will do live services and games as a service and have battle passes and seasons for a lot of their titles, but they're also going to have a lot of their titles be single-player narrative-driven because they want to attract those players into their ecosystem. And sometimes it's going to be risky, but if that risk does pay off, more and more people will subscribe to Game Pass. Matt Booty says there is no single overriding approach to game development under Microsoft, nor groupthink approach to design. Although the company has talked a lot about evolving games and retention and subscription models, not every game is going to get a season pass. Quote, "We don't have any direction or mandate that says every game has to be an ongoing sustained game. Take Psychonauts. There might be a Psychonauts 3, but I'm not going to tell Tim Schafer to go make it. Knowing the history of games that he makes, I don't think he's going to be making a game that has seasons and goes on for 5 years. Sea of Thieves has longevity, and we're going to have Halo multiplayer start to be based around seasons. But Compulsion Games, their studio in Montreal, weren't told to go build something that's going to have seasons or 6 pieces of DLC or something. Tell me why it was an important story for us to get out there, but there is no mandate that they've got to figure out how to do seasons for that game." Now, this isn't the first time we've heard Phil Spencer or Matt Booty talk about how they really don't mandate to developers what type of games they make. It's really up to the developers themselves, and some studios are just better equipped to make games as a service. Like Halo makes sense as a games as a service. You can see Sea of Thieves has been incredibly popular in that format. But then you look at some of the other developers that Microsoft has acquired over the years, and you know that Obsidian is going to make single-player RPGs. You know that Ninja Theory is going to put out Hellblade 2 and Project Mara, and they're going to be that single-player AAA cinematic narrative experience that people want. Same thing with Compulsion Games and In Exile. Those studios are basically used to making those single-player experiences. Matt Booty and Phil Spencer aren't demanding, hey, you know what? We have Xbox Game Pass now, so stop what you've been doing successfully for the past decade and make games as a service. And then you look at Bethesda, and even though they've dipped their toes into games as a service with Fallout 76, a lot of their upcoming games are single-player co-op, like Redfall or Starfield. So in reality, the whole games as a service versus single-player narrative-driven game is basically going to be decided by what the studio makes. And as Phil Spencer said, they have more single-player narrative-driven games in development right now than in the history of Xbox. But what about acquisitions? What did Phil and Matt say about making more acquisitions for Xbox in the future? Well, both Spencer and Booty are also very clear that if video games are going to expand their audience into new demographics and territories, they will need to tell new stories, and that will require new types of studios in new places. Does this mean Microsoft might purchase a studio in India, Africa, or South America? Quote, "It would actually surprise me if that doesn't happen," says Spencer. "Just knowing the talent that's available and the tools such as game engines, Unity, and Unreal that are so much more accessible, I would be surprised if in the next 3 to 5 years you don't see numerous studios in places that aren't the traditional hubs of video game development." And Matt Booty agrees, quote, "There should be a several hundred-person studio in one of these territories, and not for outsourcing or support, but a team building whatever the version of the best blockbuster game may be for that market. That is very much the vision." So there you have it again, guys. Another interview with Phil and Matt, and another time they talk about acquisitions, but this time not in the way that you would expect. I know everybody is high right now on the potential of Xbox acquiring IO Interactive because of Project Dragon, or Avalanche because of contraband, and of course the rumors that have been floating around about Warner Brothers games maybe selling off NetherRealm and Mortal Kombat or Traveler's Tale with the LEGO license, which would be an amazing fit for Xbox. You know, Xbox does need a fighting game developer. NetherRealm is one of the best. Phil has talked about his desire to have kid-friendly studios for games on Game Pass, and Traveler's Tale does fit that bill. Will those studios be sold off is the question. Who really knows? But all we know for sure is that Xbox is looking for studios. They're looking for talent. They're looking for diversity. And when you go into places like they mentioned in this article about the idea of purchasing a studio in India, Africa, or South America, which is completely off the course of the studios that are normally getting mentioned in these acquisition rumors, it's just Xbox trying to take risks. Maybe the next big game comes out of one of those development studios in one of those countries. So Xbox is always on the lookout for new talent, new developers, new ideas, because they know they need more games for Xbox, more games for the beast that is Xbox Game Pass. So I know it's really easy to get laser focused on the big names like NetherRealm and IO Interactive, but you never know, a new studio that you may not have heard of in India, Africa, or South America could just be the next big studio with the next great idea that Xbox is looking towards. Anyways, guys, that's the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's my first video in basically a month. I still have some cobwebs I need to shake off. Hopefully you guys liked the video, and if you did, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified immediately whenever I drop videos like this. Please share this out on social media, and if you want to take your support for the channel even further, you can always hit the join button where you will get access to channel badges and emotes for the Xbox 2 podcast we do every single week with Jez Corden from Windows Central. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later, guys.